Well, good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening television news. We are broadcasting live and then available on demand. We are available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV, and of course, Facebook and YouTube. It's time to queer up the news. It's Monday, October 10th, 2022, and we are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson. This evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ+ community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ+ news, you will see it and hear it.
Happening Out Television Network is a 501c3 nonprofit media platform in the television and radio models of PBS and NPR, but designed for our LGBTQ+ community.
We're part of one of the largest LGBTQ+ media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 37 years of the LGBTQ+ experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ+ and broader community.
Let's begin by welcoming anchor FayWhat. She's a radio and television personality and has a popular blog and YouTube channel aiming to unite the L and the G together. She's a hostess and MC for many South Florida events, an animal advocate, and owner of Faye's Fur Family. Also, make sure you catch the FayWhat Show, the first LGBTQ+ morning show, Mondays at 9 a.m. Eastern, online or of course on your smart TV. Good evening, Faye.
Good evening, folks. And I am still just thinking about how wonderful this month is. It is October and it is a Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is why I am wearing pink today. Year and a half cancer free, baby. And listen, folks, I always want to remind you that 1 in 100 are men who actually, unfortunately, are diagnosed with breast cancer. So early detection is key. Make sure you go get those mammograms. All right? All right. Next up, let's welcome John Hayden. A journalist for 27 years, he now works for several outlets, including South Florida Gay News, as a reporter and community editor, covering politics, entertainment, and local events directly impacting the LGBTQ+ community. John's interviewed everyone from presidents to Oscar winners and been on more red carpets than me at Scottish Pride. That was a lot of red carpets. Welcome, John.
Well, thank you so very much. I appreciate it. And I'd like to say, before I get going, I'd like to say something about free press. Attacking journalists and publications has been back in vogue for about 7 years now. Now, one of the leading voices in South Florida's LGBTQ+ media is under attack by a politician who should know better. We are lucky to have 4 strong media voices here in South Florida: Happening Out Television, Hotspots Magazine, SFGN, and OutClick. I am lucky enough and privileged enough to be associated with all 4. An attack on any one of us is an attack on all of us. Everything published in an article that is currently under fire is factual. Every outlet has the right to make their own editorial choices. Not everyone will agree, and that's not our job. Without a free media, America will crumble.
Preach.
And that said, let's now welcome anchor Francia. Francia is an Afro-Venezuelan recording artist, singer, songwriter, dancer, lawyer, and yoga practitioner. His first album, Infinita, is streaming on all music platforms and is a genre-fluid melange of Latin rhythms. Before finding his artistic vocation, Francia practiced corporate law in New York City and was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Welcome, Francia.
Thank you for having me, and thank you Selena River Hotels at Miami River for having me as their wellness resident this month. I will be teaching yoga flows there, so sign up at thefrancia.com/wellness. And now it's my pleasure to welcome anchor Gregg Shapiro, an inductee into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Gregg is the author of 8 books, including his latest, Fear of Muses, an entertainment journalist whose celebrity interviews and music reviews run in a variety of regional LGBTQ+ and mainstream publications and websites. His movie review column called Screensaver can be found in South Florida Gay News, San Francisco Bay Area Reporter, RottenTomatoes.com, and more. Good evening, Gregg.
Good evening, y'all. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight. And this evening, we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points of the Queer News for today, Monday, October 10th, 2022, Indigenous Peoples Day.
Well, let's begin by queering up politics. Val Demings' challenge at first ever LGBTQ voting center. If we turn out, we win. Well, Florida Senate candidate Val Demings visited the heart of the LGBTQ+ Florida on Saturday to issue a clear challenge. She was the first candidate to dedicate the opening of the Get Out the Vote Center on Wilton Drive in Fort Lauderdale. The center is the first of its kind in America that opens a large clubhouse of types for the LGBTQ community and candidates that embrace the LGBTQ+ community. Congresswoman Demings is just the first of dozens who will visit and continue to keep the need to get out the vote front and center leading up to the November 8 midterm elections. Demings arrived on her campaign bus to a large crowd that included dozens of statewide and local politicians and a large number of LGBTQ+ community supporters. Demings is in a statistical tie with anti-LGBTQ Senator Marco Rubio. Rubio continues to run television ads that demonize the LGBTQ+ community, including drag queens, the trans community, and more. Demings' message was simple and clear. If we turn out, we win, quote unquote. She asked the South Florida an estimated 1.5 million Florida LGBTQ community to help her get out the vote. She concludes, if we turn out, Demings and other pro-LGBTQ+ candidates will go to school boards, commissions, the State House, and to Washington, supporting the LGBTQ community. Many speakers, including Lieutenant Governor candidate and Charlie Crist running mate, Carla Hernandez, one of Florida's greatest opponents to Governor Ron DeSantis's Don't Say Gay initiatives, was present and spoke. The Get Out the Vote Center is a future model of the entire LGBTQ community and was created in a partnership with the Dolphin Democrats and the Florida LGBTQ+ Democratic Caucus. The voting center will be open daily until the November 8 election.
You know what? That was so absolutely wonderful. I think I'm just going to go back out, get on the bus, and come back in here and do it all over again. It is such an honor and privilege and pleasure for me to be in Wilton Manors with you. It feels so good to be back. It feels so good to be back with you. And guess what, y'all? We have an important election that's right around the corner. But I came today to tell you something you already know. But let me just reinforce it. When we show up, we win. Oh, come on, y'all. Let me say it this time. When we show up, we win. Stephen, I want to thank you so much for your leadership. And hey, congratulations on the new center. Give yourselves a round of applause. It is so exciting. No, I love you more. I love you more.
Well, I was present at the event. I've interviewed Congresswoman Demings a number of times. This is a big pinnacle moment for LGBT in South Florida and Florida. She basically challenges us to say in community, we're either going to show up or we're not. It's really a simple binary decision. We are or we aren't. If we do, we win. If we don't, we won't. And it was an interesting day. I appreciated her shouting out the value of this new center. It's really historic in America that something this large and so visible in community in the final month before the election would open on Wilton Drive. How appropriate that Wilton Manors would be front and center in American politics for LGBT. And it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next month. You know, at Queer News Tonight, we're going to report on it every step of the way.
She hasn't stopped since we saw her at Stonewall, right? Since you interviewed her on the stage of Stonewall. You can tell by her voice. That woman has not stopped.
Get her some hot tea.
Right?
Well, or that someone should teach you how to speak diaphragmatically, because she'll have no voice when she wins. She'll have no voice to speak with.
Someone like Val will always have a voice, no matter what. She'll figure out a way. Let's talk about these horrible commercials that Marco Rubio has out. I mean, like, what is wrong with him? And he, of course, has to spotlight a drag queen, somebody from our community, right? And that drag queen, her name is Little Hot Mess, right? That's her name.
Who is not
from Florida. She is not from Florida. And you've got her front and center. She literally works in LA. I mean, like, what is wrong with this man? We can go on and on about how just nasty and crappy these commercials have been lately.
Well, that's because they cut one ad, drop in Marco Rubio's name, drop in congressional candidate's name. I mean, they don't customize them really outside of that. So they just say, oh, one LA drag queen, bad for all America, and that's where they go. And one of the things, by the way, just tomorrow is the last day in Florida to register to vote. It's also National Coming Out Day. So come out and register to vote. If you've already registered, there's a good chance you've got one of these in the mail. Your vote by mail ballots are in. You can fill it out, drop it off. It's important to drop it off as early as possible, because let's say your signature on that you sign on the envelope somehow doesn't match what you signed 20 years ago when you registered to vote. They can call you. They can have you come down and cure your ballot, which means verify that it's you and get it counted. So the earlier you do it, the better chance you have of getting your vote counted.
So these are the absentee ballots that you're talking about.
Vote by mail. Vote by mail.
Vote by mail. Francia, I wanted to ask you specifically. Yes. You watched Val Demings' representation of people in color, people of color and community. What's your reaction to it?
If we are to have a senator who is Black, woman, and pro-LGBT, we have to turn out. So today I want to speak to the millennial community who are Latino, Black like me, and queer. Your vote matters. November 8th is just around the corner, and show up so we can break that statistical tie that you spoke about.
It's a statistical tie.
So how important is the center, Al, and why is it the first one? Like, I was literally looking, I was like, wow, it really is the first of its kind, like in the whole country.
Because it was interesting as I was there, John was there also for SFGN. It's interesting because being so visible on the drive, one of the things, it was the first opportunity. This was basically the grand opening, and Val Demings inaugurates it. It's so important because it allows us a place on Wilton Drive for LGBTQ community to go to. If you want to know anything about the election, a candidate, voting, anything, that's where you go. Every day it will be open between now and the midterms. Also, equally important is for candidates. Candidates coming into South Florida, Val Demings does not have an office in South Florida. So she's unofficially going to use the voting center, the LGBT voting center, as her headquarters in South Florida and Broward County and Wilton Manors. All of the candidates, statewide, regional, etc., will be coming to this location. And it'll give great opportunities for voices like John and mine and others to be able to elevate what's going on in this last month. And so that's what's really, really great about this incredible center. Again, a unique partnership with Dolphin Democrats and Stephen Gaskell of the Florida LGBTQ Democratic Caucus. One last thing that I think is super important. Over the weekend, Herschel Walker's campaign, just really very distressing news about the paid abortions, the multiple mandatory requirement for the abortion, the issue of the number of children that are available, and. It's unseemly at best. Okay, that's Georgia's problem. That's not our problem in South Florida. But Florida got into the problem yesterday because our other senator, Florida Senator Rick Scott, is going this week to Georgia because he wants to show support of Herschel Walker. It is the representation of everything of why this voting center is so important, why a Val Demings is so important, why a Charlie Crist is so important, is we're watching people in a completely different way than what we watched Donald Trump want to win at all cost. And they will embrace a Herschel Walker with the news that has come out over the last 4 days and still say, but he's okay for us. Once upon a time, there was no Republican in America that could possibly accept what we've watched in the last 4 days of a Herschel Walker, much less of anyone of note in political circles. Florida's senator is going this week to support him in Georgia. It's a reflection of this literally is probably the election of a lifetime. Literally.
We move on and we queer up the road to Stonewall. Stonewall National Museum and Archives opens historic 3 new exhibits. Over the weekend, Fort Lauderdale's Stonewall National Museum and Archives held a special opening of not 1, but 3 new LGBTQ+ community exhibitions. I attended the opening on Friday night with Queer News Tonight and friend-ish person, Al Ferguson. The major exhibit was Follow the Yellow Brick Road. The exhibition follows the events prior to Stonewall in 1969 that were important moments in LGBTQ+ history, but, like Kansas in the movie, they remained in black and white. The exhibit shows how it was Stonewall that thrust us into the age of color, flags, and pride. This exhibit marks key moments in our history along with moments in Stonewall National Museum and History's archives. These 2 trajectories travel the same yellow brick road heading towards Oz, which has always been just a little bit out of reach. The exhibit suggests we may have thought we had arrived there at least a few times, only to be disappointed. The exhibit uses references from The Wizard of Oz, something that has become part of our community's culture, as an illustration of our own ups and downs over the past 50 years. I was moved and honored that my cover on SFGN and my story of the censorship we are facing in this year was included in the museum exhibition. In the Ross Gallery is the Hey Groomer exhibition. It explores code words that are used against the LGBTQ+ community. The final exhibition launched in the library is Cats, not the musical. Jonathan Ned Katz. He's one of the foremost scholars of LGBTQ+ history and recently donated a significant part of his library to Stonewall. The collection of over 850 volumes is the largest the organization has ever received from a single donor. The new executive director, Robert Keston, gave a motivational speech on the exhibition and the importance of keeping the history of LGBTQ+ people in front of all of us. Queer News Tonight encourages you to visit and support the Stonewall National Museum, located on Sunrise Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale in the ArtServe building. Complete details about these new exhibitions can be found at stonewall-museum.org. And, I've written several stories on them, and to have my work published alongside so many other people, we're talking like Washington Post stories are published in this exhibition in New York Times. And each writer, myself included, is only one voice. But my God, when you see just a few of these voices huddled together and put out in front of you, and you think there's so many more of us that if we keep telling the stories, hopefully someone's going to start to read, someone's going to listen. And it was a really special night to be there, not just for the own honor that I got and the pride that my mother had is reflected on Facebook,
Nice.
but also just for our entire community.
You're so humble, John. I mean, this story, I remember when the story...
John?
He is, except about his looks, because he really does think that he's hot. Anyway, but about your writing, you're a magnificent writer. You represent us so eloquently and so well. And how long is this going to be at the exhibit? How long is this exhibition going to be?
I believe it's about 2 months. I don't know the exact date of closing.
I think 3 months. I think
3
at
months?
the end of the year.
We definitely have to go and support.
And I want to say congratulations to my fellow follically challenged Queer News Tonight bookend, It's an honor to sit across the table from you.
Thank you, Greg.
I am so excited to attend. This brings me back to my time in college. I went to NYU, and going to Stonewall, the bar, and not really having a lot of the context there. This is a perfect opportunity to get better educated and to spread the news through my Instagram blog.
You know, John and I went together to the exhibit. What was interesting is they were launching 3 exhibits simultaneously. And the exhibit is excellent. Robert did an excellent job with a great crowd for the opening of the exhibit. The 2 interesting things to me about this are really have nothing to do with the exhibit. The first thing is, I wasn't a fan of the previous executive director of the Stonewall Museum. I think the Stonewall National Museum and Archives requires no justification at all in our community. It is so important, it is beyond important. Mm-hmm. Those archives that you don't get to see on a regular basis are so incredibly important for our history. Think of it as a version for our community of the Smithsonian. Mm-hmm. That's what this museum represents. Mm-hmm. The previous executive director didn't understand that and didn't do a good job with it. Robert is such a breath of fresh air from my standpoint, because he is there and not very tall, and he stands up in front of a crowd, and it's like a gay religious preacher, just explaining to you why you need to have this religion.
Like a tent revival.
A tent revival. And I just think that is it's a foreboding of great things that are coming for our community, led by this new executive director. And then the second thing that is really incredible on Friday, which is the thing that I come away with, was his message. His message, of course, he's talking about the 3 things. Congratulations, John, on having your cover and your article included in the exhibit. That's a wonderful moment. But really, that's not the important moment. And the Washington Post isn't the important moment. And the reflection of Don't Say Gay and DeSantis is not gay. The important thing is what the exhibit talks about, and then what he talks about over and over again. The LGBTQ community must keep our history in front of us. Mm-hmm. He says it over and over again. The 3 exhibits talk about it. The donor exhibit that he gets from Cats Not the Cat is a reflection of that the goal of the Stonewall National Museum and Archives is to keep our history in front of it. Let's go for happy hour. Great. But let's keep our LGBT history in front of us, because it's vitally important. And that's why Friday night and the opening of these exhibits is so important. If you haven't been to the Stonewall National Museum lately, go back. It's time. It's time.
Next, we queer up South Florida and Florida. Pride on the Drive announced to support February Pride of the Americas. A major winter party is coming during Pride of the Americas weekend in February 2023. Pride of the Americas is the international event that will be celebrated the weekend of February 10th through 12th, 2023 on Fort Lauderdale Beach. Today, the nonprofit 501c3 media group Hotspots Magazine Happening Out Television Network announced a major event in Wilton Manors called Pride on the Drive. The indoor and outdoor party supported by Hotspots Events will include an entertainment performance stage in the Wilton Shops parking lot and partnerships with Alibi and other entertainment, bar and business interests from the entire Wilton Drive. Pride on the Drive will be Wilton Manors' invitation to the entire South Florida community and the national and international guests to come to Wilton Manors on Friday night, February 10th, to enjoy what is commonly referred to as the gayest place on planet Earth. The amazing street-long party will join the event planning team from the media network that plans other events like Stonewall Pride, Pride Fat, Taste of the Island, Pride Skate, Vibes on the Drive, Art Walk Wilton Manors, and a whole lot more. Best of all, the entire Wilton Pride on the Drive will be a free festival event. Tens of thousands are expected to attend, and I will definitely be one of them. That's going to be incredible, and it's perfect for Valentine's Day. Now I don't have to plan anything for the boo. No, but when you think about Pride of the Americas, think about that. Pride of the Americas. That means every single pride that you've ever thought of, jumble it all together, and then amount 4 more times on top, and that's what you're going to get from an event this big.
And it's so great because it was canceled in 2020 because of COVID.
Yes.
So the fact that we were able to put it together and remounted is really exciting.
Yeah.
And this is the prelude. This isn't part of Pride of the Americas. This is supporting it. So our party on the drive is going to be great. It's going to have great access, easy to get in, easy to get out. I mean, I love the beach, and Pride down on the beach is great. But getting in and leaving can be a problem. But this is going to be just something that we're doing to support it, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun, regardless of whatever happens down on the beach. But for heaven's sakes, drink a lot of water and hydrate yourself, because it's still hot here in February.
John's always advocating hydrate yourself.
Good advice.
You had me at the gayest place on earth. That's it. That's all I needed to hear. I'll be there. Thank you.
It's going to be a great Friday night of the weekend. Pride of the Americas is this idea of combining North America, Central America, the Caribbean, and South America into one celebration of the multi-diversity of LGBTQ community. So that's a great idea. People will come from all over the hemisphere. It's kind of like a smaller version of a World Pride for the Western Hemisphere. So you have those events. You'll have a big concert. You'll have the festival. You'll have the parade. Faye and I have broadcast the parade. We'll be broadcasting the parade in February of 2023. But this is a nice kind of hometown approach. Pride on the Drive is something very different than that, but adds to the great diversity of Pride of the Americas, where the entire business community on Wilton Drive can come together and say, let's have a great time and let's celebrate. It'll be a free event. There'll be a gigantic stage in partnership with Alibi and other businesses and bars and restaurants on the drive. So it's mark your calendar, Friday, February 10th. Pride on the Drive comes to Wilton Manors as we celebrate the Pride of the Americas. You don't want to miss it.
My calendar has been marked, and next we're going to queer up gay culture. LGBTQ art gallery coming to Wilton Manors will be Florida's first. The LGBTQ community is loyal to the creative and cultural community, whether painters, musicians, artists, and other forms of expression through creative arts. Our community leads in the broader community in this field. So when the news came today that a new dedicated LGBTQ art gallery was coming to Wilton Manors, we asked, why did it take so long? Hotspots magazine, Happening Out television network, announced today that the nonprofit 501c3 media group will continue to invest in the Wilton Manors and LGBTQ community. To be called the Hotspots Happening Out Gallery, it will be dedicated to continual new exhibitions by a wide range of LGBTQ artists, to be led and directed by famous LGBTQ+ artist and photographer Dennis Dean. The art gallery will focus on varieties of mediums and different aspects of queer community. This is the next implementation of the experiential space that has operated for more than a year at the former Hotspots office in Oakland Park. The nonprofit media group president Jeff Sterling said, quote, "The gallery really needed to have a cultural representation of our LGBTQ community. The first phase was wildly successful. Now bringing the gallery to Wilton Manors means we can have both indoor and outdoor exhibits, social gatherings, and an opportunity to bring the entire South Florida LGBTQ community into Wilton Manors to celebrate the creative spirit of the queer community," end quote. The gallery is next to the Hotspots magazine Happening Out offices on Dixie Highway and across the street from the cultural centers of the Island City Stage, the Foundry Theater, and Pride Center at Equality Park. This is another step from Hotspots Happening Out Media Group to help make Wilton Manors, Florida, the nation's premier LGBTQ community. The Oakland Park Gallery will continue until the end of the year with a grand opening in Wilton Manors in January. And I am so excited to attend. I haven't been to the one in Oakland Park, and to see it move to Wilton Manors at such an iconic space will be wonderful, to have more visibility and more food access to this wonderful space. So congratulations.
And me and Al and also John and Greg also, we've all gone to the gallery where it's at now. And here's the thing, LGBTQ+, we're not just about partying. We love partying, don't get me wrong, but we love theater, we love art spaces, and we love to support our LGBTQ+ artists as well. So Dennis Dean is incredible, not because he took my pictures naked or anything, right? But also because of that, right? And so his eye, he's just so gifted. I'm so happy that this gallery is moving to a bigger location, and they'll have an indoor and outdoor, so I see a lot more events that'll be put on there in the future for sure. I can't wait till January.
And and you speak to that. It's a larger size, and anytime we're showcasing LGBTQ plus artwork is a good thing. But the current space, it's just not. There's no flow to it. You know what I mean? You can see great stuff and it's well lit, but you just can't really go from room to room. And this new space is going to be feng shuied, it's going to really be there, and it's going to be closer to the heart of where everything is. So hopefully, we're going to be able to have a lot of great entertainment acts and everything there. And Al, we won't have to work nearly as hard to find parking anymore.
Exactly right.
And it's definitely a long overdue addition to the cultural scene in Wilton Manors. And now we have something to do in January and February.
Yeah, and the current gallery is the old Hotspots offices. The Hotspots offices in Oakland Park were never thought of to be a gallery. I congratulate Jeff Sterling, Jameer Baptiste, who coordinates the efforts with Dennis Dean. They've really made a success out of a sow's ear, because it was offices, and it's like, well, we don't need these offices. What are we going to do with it? And this was the creative, cultural implementation. And now the move from that space into larger rooms. The gallery is actually 2 larger rooms, but equally important, give access into a large roll door at the back, and a large space that can be used as an indoor-outdoor function space. So it gives so many opportunities that they don't have. And this is the first of its kind in Florida. There's no LGBT dedicated art space in Florida. You can't, full stop, right there. The commitment of doing that, to commit to photographers and artists and all kinds of different mediums, is incredibly important.
And it'll be filling the gap that when the Stonewall Gallery closed on the drive, this is a necessary addition. We need to have that.
Yes, there. Absolutely. And it also gives the opportunity on steroids, because we love Oakland Park. We love it's a huge LGBTQ community, but this is Wilton Drive and Dixie Highway.
Yes.
It's
so
a
it's
different,
right there.
It's a different address corner and feel. Yeah. And I love the idea that it's sitting across from our 2 boutique-ish theaters for LGBT. For sure. It's a block from the Pride Center of Equality Park, and they bring in entertainment events. So it's a 4th cultural spot that has now will form in January for LGBT and the Wilton Manors community. Wilton Manors, I love it. It is an embracement of the community.
It really is.
It's long overdue.
And one last thing, I had spoken to Dennis Dean about what the future looks like, right? And he promised me, and he said, Faye, you're going to love it. It's going to be women. It's going to be queer. It's going to be black and brown. There's going to be so much inclusivity that's going to be brought to this gallery. So I'm really looking forward to that. And
Dennis doesn't even know this yet, and I probably shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. We're going to be broadcasting on December 1st from Art Basel, and incorporated in our Queer News Tonight broadcast will be the new gallery that's going to open in January. It's an LGBT embracement from Art Basel. So we're very much looking forward to that.
Fabulous. And now we queer up the USA View. Here's why DeSantis and Republicans are afraid. Less straight is growing fast. Nearly 30% of Gen Z identify as something other than straight. According to a new report, Stonewall's Rainbow Britain report found that Gen Z is easily the UK's queerest age group. 71% of Gen Z said they identify as straight, compared to 82% of millennials, 87% of Gen X, and 91% of baby boomers. Stonewall's CEO, Nancy Kelly, said, quote, "This groundbreaking new report shows that our lives as LGBTQ plus people are more visible and connected to our friends and family. It is also amazing to see that younger generations are no longer afraid to be themselves and have supportive families and social environments to thrive," end quote. The report also found that Gen Z and millennials are the age groups most likely to be trans and have close connections with trans people. Some 4% of Gen Z and millennials said they identify as trans, while 14% of Gen Z and 11% of millennials have family and friends who are trans. The report notes, encouragingly, that the future is far more familiar and connected with trans people. This obviously bodes well for reducing the appalling stigma and prejudice faced by trans people in the UK. It would be nice, in fact, if anything scared DeSantis and the GOP as much as they scare LGBTQ plus people. But as we've said many times in the show, once again, it is the young people leading the way. This is just another example of that. And I did make me wonder when it came to the baby boomer thing, I just thought of all the losses in the baby boomer community, the gay community during the AIDS, the peak of the AIDS crisis. If maybe those numbers would have been different than they are now, if you think that as things had changed, that maybe maybe more of them would have been out, but that's just something I was wondering.
The GOP knows that when you reduce stigma, you reduce fear.
Yeah.
And they trade almost solely on fear. And I don't know if we can bring that chart back. There was a lot of numbers on a chart we had up when you were delivering the story. If not, go back, rewind about 30 seconds and have a look at it. Because those numbers, that's it. Those numbers are really powerful. You can literally see how acceptance is coming. Not only acceptance of a community, but of people's acceptance of themselves. This when I first read this story today, I was staggered. Yeah.
Incredible. I mean, I hope, like Greg said, I hope that something like this does worry DeSantis, because the UK, we're not too different. I went to a kid's birthday party over the weekend, folks, right? And the kids probably were like in a range between like 10 and 14, all right? Can I tell you how many of them were so comfortable saying, yes, my friend is non-binary, or they, and it was like not even an issue? They're so much more fluid. And the kids after that, which is what, Generation Alpha? Even more so. So DeSantis better watch out at all these people also, because there's a lot of us and we're coming for you.
That's right. Their time is running out.
It is inevitable. Times are changing. And it's so encouraging that these young people are so courageous and that they're really showing up for our community. And so an encouragement to all of them to continue being brave. That's beautiful to watch.
This story is so incredibly important today. It is beyond important in LGBT. First, I highly suggest that Ron DeSantis, Lindsey Graham's, etc., know that this is out there, and this is what they fear, because they know that the times are changing, and they are trying to find ways to hold it back, to stall it off as long as possible, create culture war. They ultimately, of what this study suggests, is they will fail. Just flatly, they will fail. Not tomorrow, maybe not November 8th, although we will watch closely, but they will ultimately fail, because what is happening is a broad segment of population of young people are saying, you cannot hold me down anymore. And this always existed, and baby boomers wouldn't admit it at all. And Gen X was in a situation where more people did, and millennials where more people did. Gen Zers are showing you can't hold us back. To the trans community, you should read this study closely, because when you finish reading the study and its conclusions, you will take heart of what your life is going to grow into. Acceptance is coming, which is what this story is going to say. Creating culture wars are going to fail. That's what this story is going to say. We just have to fight through it and do the best we can till we get there. But there's this old 16th century adage about the little Dutch boy. It was the joke about the finger in the dike. The word dike comes from it. The little Dutch boy could not keep his finger in the dike and keep the water at bay. Eventually it collapses. That's exactly what we're watching here, and this study proves it.
Next, we're proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m. with more than 30,000 watching every week.
I'm Taisha Best, your queer community servant, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, we finish tonight's queer news headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ+ 1 Minute News.
LGBTQ+ 1 Minute News, let's queer up the worldview. From LGBTQ+ news partner DNA Magazine and writer Joshua Donovan. Melbourne's Yara Trams seeks new Pride Tram for 2023 design. For 3 consecutive years, the team at Yara Trams in Melbourne, Australia, has wrapped the city trams in rainbow colors for Pride as part of their #AllAboard campaign. This year, in collaboration with Midsummer, Joy Media, and the Department of Transport, the new design has been put in the hands of local LGBTQIA+ artists, and Yara Trams would love the decision to be made by the community. Out of the submissions sent in, 5 designs have been chosen, and the winning design will be wrapped on a D-Class tram in December of 2022 and featured during the Midsummer Pride March in St. Kilda in February. Read more at dnamagazine.com.au.
LGBTQ+ 1 Minute News, let's queer up the worldview. From LGBTQ+ news partner Q News and writer Richard Baker. Australia's New Farm Queer Film Festival is set to launch. The first New Farm Queer Film Festival has unveiled its lineup of queer movie screenings later this month, presented by New Farm Cinemas and Pride Business Network. The inaugural New Farm Queer Film Festival is running from October 20th through the 27th at the cinemas at 701 Brunswick Street. Across 8 days, NFQFF will screen 10 films, predominantly Queensland premieres, as well as cult favorites and fascinating documentaries. Highlights include Bros, the highly anticipated gay rom-com from Billy Eichner and Judd Apatow, fresh from the 2022 Toronto Film Festival. The festival will open with the lesbian drama The Divide on October 20th, the queer Palm winner at the Cannes Film Festival. Read more at qnews.com.au.
LGBTQ 1 Minute News, let's queer up drag culture. From LGBTQ+ news partner Star Observer and writer Josh Kerwick. Sydney's Furball, Drag in the Dark, is Queer Sydney October. October is officially here, and Sydney might be getting a little spooky. Grove Bar in Sydney is going dark every Saturday this month for the spookiest time of the year, with its newest drag show starring Victoria Mami and her friends called Drag in the Dark. It features intimate performances done by candlelight. Also join the melting pot of queer sub-communities at Pleasure's Playhouse on Wednesday with the latest installment of their Furball. Sydney is also set to entertain the queer community this Halloween. Read more at starobserver.com.au.
LGBTQ+ 1 Minute News, let's queer up the USA View. From LGBTQ+ news partner Boston Spirit Magazine. Rhode Island's Theater and Healthcare Center awarded LGBTQ+ grants. 2 nonprofit organizations serving the LGBTQ community in Warwick, Rhode Island, received grants from the Equity Action Fund, a Rhode Island Foundation program that has made more than $1.1 billion in donations, with grants to dozens of LGBTQ initiatives in the Ocean State since its inception. Adrian Bonet, who oversees the grant program, told the Warwick Beacon, quote, "These organizations strive to ensure the health, safety, and fair treatment of every LGBTQ Rhode Islander. As we begin covering from the impact of COVID-19 on programs and services, the work of these organizations is more crucial than ever," end quote. Read more at bostonspiritmagazine.com.
LGBTQ+ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up politics. From LGBTQ+ news partner Extra Magazine and writer V.S. Wells. Alberta's new premier has alarming LGBTQ2S+ rights history. Danielle Smith, who was elected to lead Alberta's United Conservative Party on October 6th, was embroiled in controversy in 2012 after the anti-LGBTQ2S+ blog of a fellow candidate for the Wild Rose Party reemerged during the provincial election. As the right-wing political party's then leader, Smith was running to become the next Alberta premier, and polling indicated She was the front runner in the race. Smith's party ultimately lost the general election. Smith stepped down from the Wild Rose Party in 2014. In her return to the spotlight, Smith ran in a bid to replace resigning Premier Jason Kenney. People have expressed their concerns to Extra about the impact of elections on Alberta's LGBTQ2S+ population. Read more at extramagazine.com.
LGBTQ+ 1 Minute News, let's queer up the road to Stonewall. From LGBTQ+ news partner Fuegas and writer Yves Lafontaine. New report released on why Montreal Pride was canceled. Philippe Schnaub has just released his independent analysis report to shed light on the cancellation of the Pride Parade in Canada. Mr. Schnaub's report mentions several internal communication issues that would have led to the cancellation of Pride Parade. He explains, quote, on August 7, 2022, the Pride Parade is canceled following a series of confusing, overly quick exchanges that resulted in specific actions that make the cancellation inevitable. It is a deplorable misunderstanding. We wonder who turned off the light. As for the previous elements that led to forgetting to recruit resources, I believe that the departure of key people and the work overload and the lack of supervision contributed to the error non-detection. End quote. Read more at fuegas.com.
LGBTQ+ 1 Minute News, let's queer up sports. From LGBTQ+ news partner Q Notes Carolinas and writer David Aaron Moore. NASCAR and CLGBTCC celebrate Charlotte Motor Speedway LGBT+ Day. October 8th was a special day for many reasons. It combined NASCAR's Race for the Cure presentation, an event designed to heighten awareness of breast cancer, and the Carolinas LGBT+ Chamber of Commerce. Both organizations came together to present LGBTQ+ Day at NASCAR Charlotte Motor Speedway. Members of the LGBTQ+ community were urged to attend for the combined elements. In years past, NASCAR hasn't always been a particularly warm and welcoming sport for LGBTQ+ fans or participants. In 2022, NASCAR representatives are downright enthusiastic about it. Karen Grant, Director of Diversity and Inclusion at NASCAR, says, quote, last year we partnered with the Carolina LGBT+ Chamber of Commerce, and we were dying to do something like this, end quote. Read more at qnotescarolinas.com.
And now let's learn a little more about this week's Outshine LGBTQ+ Film Festival. LGBTQ+ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up health. From LGBTQ+ news partner Windy City Times. $500,000 has been raised at Chicago AIDS Run and Walk. Nearly 2,400 advocates, community partners, runners, walkers, volunteers, staff members, and more gathered at Soldier Field on October 2nd for the 31st annual AIDS Run and Walk Chicago. The event raised approximately $500,000 to directly support AIDS Foundation Chicago, AFC, and 30 community organizations providing essential programs and services for those living with or vulnerable to HIV/AIDS or other chronic illnesses. The event also marked the second anniversary of the HIV Resource Hub, Chicago's first ever one-stop shop for comprehensive health care, regardless of HIV status. Services include HIV prevention, treatment and healthcare navigation, housing support, COVID-19 and MPV vaccine information, and PrEP support. The online fundraising efforts will continue through November 2nd. Read more at windycitytimes.com.
LGBTQ+ 1 Minute News, let's queer up Road to Stonewall. From LGBTQ+ news partner The Buckeye Flame. Columbus Community Pride celebrates queer future at Pride Festival. In what will be Ohio's last Pride of 2022, Columbus Community Pride hosted its 5th annual Pride Festival on October 8, 2022 in Mamie Moore Park from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. This Black, Indigenous, queer, and trans-led annual slate of offerings featured a series of community events: karaoke night, a queer speed dating event, queer youth art and garden beautification space, and a queer burlesque show, all leading up to Saturday's Communities Pride Festival. This year's theme, The Future is Queer. The Community Pride Festival celebration including events and performances all day, such as spoken word and poetry, music and dance, burlesque and drag, highlighting Black, trans, and Indigenous culture and tradition. Read more at thebuckeyeflame.com.
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up entertainment. From LGBTQ plus news partner Metro Weekly and writer Randy Shulman. Mike Manning gets personal with Metro Weekly. The Emmy-winning actor, Mike Manning, featured on Peacock's The Bay, talked openly with Metro Weekly about life, career, and marrying the man of his dreams. The interview started with Mike saying, quote, "I am past the point in my career to just be shirtless for the sake of being shirtless," end quote. Mike talked about walking in Disney World dressed as Buzz Lightyear. He said he was 19 and wanted to leave Colorado, so he took an internship at Disney working as a Buzz Lightyear. He shared how crazy Disney entertainment parties are. The interviewers also asked him about Disney's support for the Don't Say Gay bill and how employees rose up against the management after this. Read more at metroweekly.com.
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up the road to Stonewall. From LGBTQ plus news partner Shenandoah Valley Pride. Exclusive images of Virginia's Shenandoah Valley Pride. After much consideration to the commitment of social responsibility and the time away from the community due to the pandemic, Shenandoah Valley Pride is back this year to do it all over again. The organizers threw a party where all community members got together once again. The Pride Party was held on Court Square for the return of a community celebration this past Saturday afternoon. What made the event memorable was many beautiful performances from many community queens and the newly crowned Miss Gay Harrisonburg. Here are some of the exclusive images from Shenandoah Valley Pride, and you can read more at shenandoahvalleypride.org.
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up entertainment. From LGBTQ plus news partner Tag Magazine and writer Becca DeMonte. Batwoman's Black queer legacy is Javicia Leslie. This year has been yet another full of devastating cancellations of sapphic television shows, including First Kill, Legends of Tomorrow, Queer as Folk, and The Wilds. But perhaps one of the most heartbreaking cancellations was Batwoman because of its queer Black representation. In July 2020, the CW made history when it cast Javicia Leslie as Batwoman, Ryan Wilder, in Batwoman's second season, after Ruby Rose had played Batwoman departed the show. This followed Batwoman's series premiere in 2019 when Batwoman became the first LGBTQ plus superhero to lead a network TV show. Batwoman did a fantastic job in shaping queer storytelling with this by choosing to eschew the traditional coming out narrative. Read more at tagmagazine.com.
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up trans rights. From LGBTQ plus news partner Outfront Magazine and writer Penn Watkins. TERFs create a tracking map of trans healthcare providers. In a disgusting turn of events, TERFs, trans exclusionary radical feminists, have decided to use Google Maps' My Map feature to pinpoint various healthcare centers and children's hospitals in something called the Gender Mapping Project. The project claims to protect children and hold those harming them accountable. This seems to be a disgusting idea, as the children that they are protecting are human beings with their own thoughts, emotions, and needs, and the people supposedly harming them are just transgender individuals trying to live their daily lives or healthcare providers attempting to help their patients. The map is a huge incitement of potential violence and is an act of terrorism. It also endangers trans lives globally. However, Google hesitates to remove the map and claims that it is truly not hurting anyone. Read more about this story at outfrontmagazine.com.
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up entertainment. from LGBTQ+ news partner Pride Source and writer John Besh. Non-binary characters empowered this Michigan author to write one of their own. One Michigan playwright, who identifies as gay, has some important things to say about race, queerness, God, and Tupac, and he said them through God Kinda Looks Like Tupac. Emilio Rodriguez teaches screenwriting at the University of Michigan and serves as artistic director of Detroit's Black and Brown Theater, which creates opportunities for theater artists of color in the communities they are part of. After pandemic delays and an 11th hour cast illness, God Kinda Looks Like Tupac finally opened, playing at Theater Nova in Ann Arbor in August. The roughly 90-minute play explored ongoing questions of identity, race, classroom politics, as it told the story of a young Black student named Corinne, played by MJ Handsome, who paints an unorthodox portrait of God for a Black History Month symposium. Read more at pridesource.com.
LGBTQ+ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up drag culture. From LGBTQ+ news partner GLAAD and writer Allison Bloom. GLAAD celebrates Shangela and Gleb Savchenko on Dancing with the Stars. Here's why. Drag superstar Shangela is changing the game on Disney Plus's Dancing with the Stars. Shangela has made history as not only the first drag queen to compete on the show, but also the first man to dance with another man. This landmark moment is long overdue, and who better to achieve this milestone than beloved RuPaul's Drag Race star Shangela. GLAAD's Anthony Ellen Ramos joined Shangela and DWTS partner Gleb Savchenko at one of their rehearsals to talk about the competition. Shangela and Gleb performed a James Bond-inspired dance last week. Shangela also talked about her hopes for the future of Dancing with the Stars. Read more at glad.org.
LGBTQ+ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up entertainment. From LGBTQ+ news partner Instinct Magazine and writer Quimberly Ann. Graphic artist reimagines A-list actors as sexy male superheroes. Hollywood actors we know and love are transformed into sensual gods and superheroes by a graphic artist that goes by the username of Carlos GZZ003 on Instagram. This artist has gained a large following of 141,000 followers on Instagram. Some of the famous and most liked posts include Man of Steel actor Henry Cavill as a sensual Superman. There is a sexier version of the Australian actor Brenton Thwaites as Nightwing. You will also see a sensuously godly Chris Evans in this version of Captain America. The followers of this Insta account went crazy to see the stripped-down portrayal of Scottish actor Richard Madden's Icarus. Michael B. Jordan as the Black Panther received many likes and comments too. All these sexy actors were accompanied by our God of Thunder himself, Chris Hemsworth, as Thor in electric blue trunks, along with sexy Robin, Chris O'Donnell, and Tom Holland as Spider-Man in his super boxer shorts. You can read more at instinctmagazine.com.
LGBTQ+ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up drag culture. From LGBTQ+ news partner Logo TV and writer Christopher Rudolph. Katy Perry tells Logo TV why she hasn't been a guest judge on RuPaul's Drag Race. In a new interview with Rolling Stone, Katy Perry discusses a variety of topics from her campy Las Vegas residency to her love for Dua Lipa and why she has yet to join Ru and Michelle Visage at the Drag Race judges panel. Katy Perry said, quote, "Oh, I want to. I think it's just been filming. And it's been one of those things where we tried to do it a couple of times, but the timing hasn't worked out," end quote. Perry's love for the art of drag has been no secret. She brought queens from RuPaul's Drag Race live up on stage at her Play Las Vegas show. This past August, Perry even invited Aquaria to the Play stage to teach her how to do a dip in front of her audience. Read more at logotv.com.
LGBTQ+ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up politics. From LGBTQ+ news partner HRC. The Human Rights Campaign endorses 11 ballot measures across 9 states. Last week, the Human Rights Campaign PAC announced its endorsements of positions on 11 ballot measures across 9 states, including California, Kentucky, Michigan, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, Oregon, Tennessee, and Vermont. Across the country, HRC PAC works to elect pro-equality leaders and advance pro-equality policies that support the rights of LGBTQ+ people. The Human Rights Campaign Senior Vice President, Policy and Political Affairs is Jo D. Winterhoff, and she released a statement saying, quote, "This past year we have seen our voting rights, abortion rights, and LGBTQ+ rights come under attack by extremist politicians in states across the country. Today, the HRC is endorsing positions on 11 ballot measures in an effort to help strengthen our democracy and preserve our rights and freedoms." Read more at hrc.org.
LGBTQ+ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up LGBTQ+ civil rights. From LGBTQ+ news partner Lambda Legal. Jennifer C. Pizer is named Lambda Legal's Chief Legal Officer. On Friday, Lambda Legal announced that Jennifer C. Pizer has been named Permanent Chief Legal Officer. Pizer has served as the organization's acting CLO since June, leading a department of 26 attorneys and 11 paraprofessionals with offices in Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, Los Angeles, New York City, and Washington, D.C. Jennifer C. Pizer is a champion of LGBTQ+ equality and inclusion. She was also awarded by the National LGBTQ+ Bar Association with the Dan Bradley Award in July. Since joining Lambda Legal staff in 1996, Jenny has been a leading voice for family equality, including marriage for LGBTQ people, for stopping anti-LGBTQ discrimination in employment, healthcare, and education, for protecting LGBTQ refugees, and against the misuse of religion to license discrimination. Read more at lambdalegal.org.
LGBTQ+ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up gay culture. From LGBTQ+ news partner Watermark Online and writer Ryan Williams-Gent. Tampa's All Hallows Eve Masquerade Ball returns for 39th haunting. All Hallows is one of the region's longest-running traditions, a private and by invitation only costume party thrown almost every year since 1981. A small group of organizers hosts this gathering. The group's figurehead, Casper, communicates directly with guests in writing as each event draws closer, providing important details like that year's theme. In 2020 and 2021, amidst the height of the pandemic, that included sharing news that the events were canceled. Casper announced All Hallows return in June, asking guests to save the October 22nd date and teasing this year's theme. Invitations were mailed in early September, revealing it as Carnival, celebrating the peculiar. Read more at watermarkonline.com. That is today's news for the LGBTQ+ community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ+ evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience, watching this live LGBTQ+ news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, or Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ+ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ+ stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ+ reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including FayWhat and John Hayden, Francia, and Gregg Shapiro, we will see you daily at 8 p.m. But before we end our broadcast, we have one final story. Let's queer up politics. Thou demings, if we show up, we win at LGBT Get Out the Vote Center, Wilton, Manors. Congresswoman Val Demings made it clear Saturday what is at stake in Florida in her race against Senator Marco Rubio. He suggests she is an angry black woman, that's quote unquote. He attacks our gay marriage as a waste of time. In his TV ads, he attacks Florida drag queens as groomers and that the trans community is changing all of Florida's boys into girls. Demings comes to the brand new LGBTQ plus Get Out the Vote Center in Wilton Manors on Saturday and addresses all of these issues and more, and then tells the LGBTQ plus community what they should do next.
That was so absolutely wonderful. I think I'm just going to go back out, get on the bus, and come back in here and do it all over again. It is such an honor and privilege and pleasure for me to be in Wilton Manors with you. It feels so good to be back. It feels so good to be back with you. And guess what, y'all? We have an important election that's right around the corner. But I came today to tell you something you already know, but let me just reinforce it. When we show up, we win. Oh, come on, y'all. Let me say it this time. When we show up, we win. Yes. When we show up, we win. Yes. Stephen, I want to thank you so much for your leadership. And hey, congratulations on the new center. Give yourselves a round of applause. It is so exciting. No, I love you more. I love you more. You all know that I am the former Orlando police chief, spent 27 years there, and you all know how we are. I seldom travel by myself. You know, we always have some good backup with us, and today I just believe I have the baddest backup with me of anyone. Y'all please help me in welcoming the former, the 34th, I was the 36th police chief, but the 34th Orlando police chief, former public safety director, former Orange County sheriff, current mayor of Orange County, but guess what? His best title is my husband, Jerry Demings. You all know that this is a critical time and a critical moment in our nation. It matters. And I know you know it. This race, this election season, it matters. And I know that people may say to you, oh my gosh, it's too tough. It's too hard. It's too difficult. Maybe we should wait until another time. No, we are never going to wait. Dr. King said, you know, the time is always right to do what's right. The time is always right to do what's right. And he also said, waiting to do good almost always means never doing good. We are here to fight to save the very soul of our nation, and that means fighting for every individual in our nation. I think about the people before us who gave their blood, sweat, and tears during some extremely difficult times and difficult days to make sure that we held America to its promise, to make sure that every man, every woman, every boy, and every girl, every person, regardless of who they are, the color of their skin, where they live, how much money they may have, their sexual orientation, sexual identity, or religion, will have an opportunity to succeed, will have an opportunity to live up to their full potential. That's the America that we were created to be, and that is the only America that we will be. That's right. That is the only, we will not accept another America. Sitting in the United States Senate right now is the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Sitting in the Senate right now is the Freedom to Vote Act. We want an America where the voters choose their representatives and not an America where the representatives choose their voters. Sitting in the Senate right now is the Equality Act. Sitting in the Senate, the place there where Mitch McConnell says is the graveyard. The place where good legislation goes to die, where we're not going to stand for it. Let's elect people who see you and hear you so we can pass the Equality Act. Sitting in the Senate right now is the Respect for Marriage Act. Now, doggone it, I thought it was an American tradition to love and marry the person that you love. Let's elect people to the Senate who believe that we need to pass the Respect for Marriage Act. What about gun violence? Sitting in the Senate right now is legislation that would further help to keep dangerous weapons out of the hands of dangerous people. How long will we sit back and watch first graders, fourth graders, high schoolers, college students, people shopping, people going to a movie? What about a concert in a grocery store or in a nightclub in my congressional district in Orlando? How long? How long will we continue to sit back and watch innocent people being gunned down in innocent places? Doggone it, let's elect people who want to get dangerous weapons out of the hands of dangerous people. This election is just a few days away, Jason. It's only a few days away. And doggone it, no matter what they say, no matter how much they try to discourage you, no matter how much they try to scare you, no matter how much they try to suppress the vote, let me tell you today, LGBTQ community, when you show up and show out, we win! We win. And when we get to the polls, I know some of you have your mail-in ballots right now. Fill them out. Put all those D's, check all those D's, you know, look for the D's. I'm just saying, fill them out, get them back in the mails. Show up for early voting. Go to the polls. Yes. And with you, yes, with your help and with your vote, come November 8th, just a few days away, I have no doubt that I will be elected the next United States Senator. And guess what? And guess what? We will elect Democratic candidates who see us and hear us up and down the ballot. Let's get it done. God bless you all. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ+ community.